excitement. Right here. Right here on TRAXXfm.
Good afternoon. This is Kong Yu with you for the pre-budget special right here on TRAXXfm as we work towards the unveiling of Budget 2022. Welcome to the show. We are also live on Facebook. If you'd like to catch us there, we are at TRAXXfm Official for your sneak peek into what's happening with myself and my guests. And also, of course, your chance to post your comments and also questions for our guests all throughout today's proceedings, yeah? So, speaking of guests, let me welcome them into the studios of TRAXXfm now. First up, we've got Yeen, who's the founder and CEO of the Center for Research, Advisory and Technology, otherwise known as CREATE, as well as Associate Professor Nuradli, Ridzwan, Shah, Dali, who is from the Faculty of Economics at Muamalat, Universiti Sains Islam, Malaysia, USIM, yeah? Thank you so much to both my guests for coming in today. Appreciate it. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for the invitation. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. In fact, for the entire duration as we talk about budget expectations. Of course, when we also will be listening to what's happening in Parliament a bit later and in the ensuing post-budget discussion as well, right? So thank you so much for your time, lady and also gentlemen, yeah? Now let's get right down to business, yeah? So this is going to be the first budget that's going to be under the purview of our Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob and his leadership-led government. Yeah, so this budget is very crucial, especially in driving his government's efforts to continue to protect lives and also to restore livelihoods, rebuild businesses, and catalyze post-pandemic reforms. That's another key to this whole 3R concept. Yeah, so many expectations amongst different walks of life, different Malaysians. In line as well with the Keluarga Malaysia spirit that was recently unveiled, yeah? So how can we as a whole expect this budget to help Malaysians to bounce back from all the previous setbacks that we've had? I know it's a big question, but maybe just some key thoughts. Yeen, maybe you'd like to start, yeah?
All right. Thank you so much, Kong Yu, for having me back to this budget discussion. Well, I think for this year, similar to all previous years, everybody expect the government to be a big Santa Claus every time, during this time of the year. Mm-hmm. But Santa Claus being Santa Claus, there's also limitation to how big the bag's going to be and who will be the eventual recipient and beneficiaries of whatever handouts the government is going to give to the people as it will be announced later. But I think the fundamental question or the values that we all would need to consider is how far can the ringgit stretch? Mm-hmm. Okay, whoever will receive the ringgit, how far can that stretch? And whether whatever is going to be given to a particular group of recipient, it's going to make fundamental shift and fundamental change to that particular group of people, be it the businesses, be it the B40 or, the B10, we don't know. Mm. But most importantly, what I personally would like to see is what are the fundamental changes instead of very short-term measures. Mm-hmm. It's like a one-off thing. So because one-off thing can really do so much.
Right.
It makes you feel really good,
right,
but it doesn't bring about fundamental changes and improvement.
That's right. And then one key part is actually where we see the difference in the allocation, in between the two R's, the first two R's, which is to basically, get everybody back on track, right? But also keeping in mind the third R, which is basically to, reform, right, on a more medium to longer term thing, right? So I think that's where you're coming from as well. So maybe more emphasis on how we can catalyze reforms as opposed to just continuing on aids and stimulus and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Prof, what about?
I mean, yes. Short-term measures do help, but short-term measures can only solve immediate solutions. Can only solve immediate problem, like maybe just a one-off.
Right.
But it doesn't bring about fundamental changes. I think fundamental changes and fundamental improvement is something that we really need to be looking at moving forward.
That's right, right? But of course, we are going to keep in mind as well, that it is an annual budget.
Yep.
So how much emphasis do we see with the 2022 allocation per se in context of what you just said? So that's going to be an interesting balance there. Prof, your initial thoughts?
I'd like to add to what call it, we'll call it introduction remark just now.
Right.
So basically, when we talk about fundamental changes in the economy, we have to plan in medium term and also the long term. So from my opinion is that when we are looking at the budget 2022, it's actually a short-term measures. Short-term measures, but these short-term measures must be aligned to the RMK 12.
That's right.
Okay, and then also the Wawasan Kemakmuran Bersama 2030. So which is the long-term plan. So what we can see, okay, this is what we will be listening from the announcement, okay, in a few maybe hour, is how the government can actually improvise or achieve the longer term plans, okay, but at the same time they have to also maneuver, okay, and also solve the problem of the short term. For example, let's say we have the B10, B20, B30, and B40 issues, okay, so which are we call it the poverty level is very high right now in Malaysia. It's about 5.6% in 2020, and I think it will be increasing to 8%, okay, in these coming years. So basically we have to tackle that, okay, problem, okay. We don't want, because one of the issue of SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, which is a global call it initiative to ensure that everybody, okay, have the same access, okay, to income, has that same access to everything. So equality is there, right? So we want to have inclusivity. Okay, so we don't want one group of people will be left in our economic development. Okay.
This is where I think it's going to be very interesting between, I understand it as of now, some of the opinions of the Rakyat overall, and even I think between you two, Yeen and also Prof. I think you're coming from slightly different perspectives. It's going to be interesting because it's never easy when you talk about a total budget. There's just so many aspects to it, yeah. But Prof, you said it also, the one consideration is, we've got to stay in line with 12 MP, right? The 12 Malaysia plan. And also, like I said, even though we're talking about an annual budget, but this is going to be the catalyst towards the key reformations that we're talking about that's needed to, shape our economy towards in line with the 12 Malaysia plan and also for the shared vision 2030 as well. So this is going to be interesting. Overall, what measures can be expected under this budget to ensure that there is still that portion, right, that is dedicated to the recovery plan, the NRP per se? How much do we need to emphasize that aspect of it? Okay, your thoughts? Go ahead, Prof. Yes.
In a nutshell, right? So basically, this budget, I think they will be focusing on three things. Okay, the first one is about COVID, right, for the resilience, okay, COVID measures and so on. The second one is in terms of the recovery plan, all right. So how to make sure that the businesses, okay, the small medium industries can actually recover, okay, from the COVID-19 problem. And the third one is the socio-economic, okay, issues, okay, for example, helping the needs, okay, the needies, okay, to survive, okay, to make sure that they can actually move forward, okay, in the future. So when we talk about recovery plan, so in reforming the economy, okay, we have this IR 4.0, we have the digitalization, the 5Gs and so on. So we see that there will be a radical change in the structure of the economy, okay, in terms of how the economy will work, okay, in the coming future. Well, we have seen the changes. For example, me myself in the university, okay, we are now, okay, teaching online, okay, to our students. So basically, these are some of the changes that we are facing, okay, we're embracing right now. And I'm not actually an online user. I'm online, users for before the pandemic COVID-19.
Okay.
But after the pandemic, so we have to be like an expert in that particular area, okay? Because all the, we call it teaching and learning are conducted online. So the same thing for the overall economic structure. Okay, we will see there will be a shift. Okay, from how we do business and how we actually transform, okay, a normal business to become more towards the what call it, the new norms, economic.
Right, to be more online.
More gig economy, right? So more gig economy.
And that too, yeah.
So there will be like a lot of things that might be, okay, might be allocated, okay, into that area. All right.
Now that's the thing. That's the key question as well. You know, how much emphasis? Of course, the emphasis is there, but how much, in terms of allocation and numbers, can we, in a way, afford, right, to make sure that the National Recovery Plan does drive the economic recovery and at a practical level as well? It has to work. That's the key thing, isn't it? So, any thoughts on that, Yeen?
Well, I would like to have a slight spin-off from what what have been spoken about. It's that we talk a lot about recovery, but if I speak for the SMEs and the SMIs, the business community, who will, in actual fact, recruit the rest of the population and, be the paymaster. We first need to ensure that businesses survive or able to revive, okay? And that's the recovery that we're talking about. But as a business owner, if the business owner doesn't have cash to roll, they have cash flow issues, they can't pay rent, they are not getting enough workers. Foreign workers have, the opening of the rehiring of foreign workers is not exactly open up, or have not exactly been opened up, except the agriculture sector, the 2000. Then how are we going to ensure that businesses can make a comeback? First is a cash flow. Second is their employees, the workers, whether they are skilled, unskilled, foreign or domestic. There is a crunch, a dip in job gap that we saw over the last 18 months. So I think that for government to ensure that the recovery plan can take place effectively or can be real, okay? Beside giving out cash or assistance to businesses, whether they are big or small, medium or whatever, I think it is time for the government to relook at how we can bring down establishment costs, bring down the cost of doing business, simplify the red tapes, bureaucracies, procedures to get something going, and take away the non-tariff measures. For example, like the non-monetary restrictions that can speed up and facilitate businesses to come back to be more cost effective. Because I think the barrier to entry is one for some industries. The barrier and the establishment, or I would call them cost of business in this country, is actually quite high,
right,
compared to other nations.
Right.
So I think one of the things that government can do also in this budget, because budget is really more than just giving out money. So how can we actually tweak our policies and improve the business environment? And the job of the government, I feel, is to ensure that the ecosystem is business friendly, whether it's encouraging domestic reinvestment or to welcome more FDIs coming back to the country.
Right.
I think all this will ensure that our businesses and our people can recover properly.
Yeah. FDIs, that's going to be a key, right? So that's part of our discussion today as well, which are the best ways to actually attract back the FDIs ASAP, like essentially. Of course, one of the key tenets to that, fundamentals, is of course political stability and so on. So we'll get to that when we come to the question later on. Now, overall, right, that's also a key thing, isn't it? If we could just demand sums to fall from the heavens, right? That would be the magic pill. But we know that it's not going to work that way. And are we expecting another record-sized budget compared to already the 322.5 billion announced for 2021? And that was actually looking at things from a fairly optimistic point of view, right? At that point in time in October of last year, right? So what's your thoughts on that in terms of the actual budget size itself? Prof?
Okay, for last year budget, I thought it was a little bit smaller than what I've expected, because I was expecting that it goes up to maybe 400 billion at a particular time because of the COVID and all that. Okay, but nevertheless, okay, for this year, okay, the budget might be hovering around that figure, around that figure, because we are looking also what I call it a deficit, another deficit for Malaysia, so which is. It is actually like normal for other countries to have deficits, but to have a high deficit continuously will be not good for the economy, because this will be like an debts, okay, will be converted to debts, okay, when you have deficit, then you have to get what I call it the sources to finance the deficit.
Right.
So normally we use debts, okay, from local and also from foreign. So it's better to get from the local, okay, for example from GLCs and so on. However, the next generation will have to be the
It's payback time.
They have to pay.
Yeah, that's right.
We make the debt, they have to pay. So it's not good, right? So basically here, when we talk about the this year budget, I believe it will be a bit around that maybe 300 to 350.
Okay.
But we should not be consistently on a very high deficit for
long time, prolonged period, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Any thoughts on the actual amounts?
Do I look like Tengku Zafrul? No, anyway, I think based on the reports and all the speculations, over the last 1 week, I think the MOF also sent up hints that it's going to be a bigger one compared to last year.
Right.
But as to what amount, I wouldn't know. We all will know, in a half an hour.
That's right.
Yeah.
We'll know in about 4 p.m. So we expect a larger budget even.
Yes, definitely.
Bear in mind, of course, what Prof was saying, Yeah, I mean, you can only roll over.
Yeah, but I think the deficit will be as high as during the financial crisis time.
Yeah,
I think it's going to move towards there.
We have a high deficit last year, right? But this year will be another high.
That's right.
High.
Okay,
it will be higher. I think.
Okay, but it will be maybe it's about 6%. I think.
Yeah,
it will be.
We had recent numbers as high as 7.7, I believe, as of first half of the year, I believe. Yeah, and then of course with the slight recovery in the middle portion of the year, but then you got to contrast that against what's been happening at Q3, which is not very positive to put things in perspective, but a more positive Q4, so it's gonna be a lot of plus and minuses as we account for the entire year per se. Speaking of accounting, of course, last year in the last budget, the healthcare sector was the largest beneficiary, rightfully so, right? Despite, Prof, you were saying, the federal government's debt rising to 61.2% of GDP, and also statutory debt level at 56.8% as of June of this year, 2021. Yeah. Lady and gentlemen, do you feel that healthcare will still remain a top priority, or it is maybe, somewhat of a less priority this year?
You see, when we say that healthcare has gotten the largest chunk of last year's budget, I think we should also look at the breakdown of the entire healthcare budget, whether it's in procurement, whether the procurement to buy vaccines, to buy masks for the frontliners and all that, or it is more in the development budget to upgrade our hospitals, improve the ICU condition, or are we spending it on to pay for the doctors and the nurses? So I think we need to look one level deeper or two levels deeper to see the sizable budget, how has it been spent, and I think that can be found in the breakdown of every ministry's budget. But of course, the public may not have the privilege of getting into that detail.
Okay, but where do you see should be the emphasis in healthcare amongst those categories that you mentioned?
I think development is very important. I think for any budget, if we spend too much on procurement and direct expenses, although there is a need to do so, but that would mean that the rest of the infrastructure not only the hardware infrastructure, but the software, which is the talent, the people, may be neglected. And we have to remember that COVID, yes, is important. It's affecting lives around the world, economy, everything, literally everything. But we still have to remember that there are a lot of other diseases that needs the attention. For example, patients. I heard of patients who have been deprived of their primary care simply because the ICU has been taken up by
their resources,
COVID patients.
That's
yes,
right, towards COVID.
Yes, exactly. So people who have been suffering, by people who have been suffering other diseases may not get what's due to them, within the public healthcare sector, and I think that's not fair. I think that part needs to be relooked at. But of course, during this pandemic, I think all attention have been given to COVID patients. So a better balance on that will be ideal.
Okay, yeah, and I think you struck on the nail there as well. Overall, I mean, for a country like Malaysia, we must not forget that development is really the fundamentals here, right? I mean, of course, we've been shaken by COVID and we're reacting to it. Have been ever since Budget 2021. But this is where we need to, sort of like ground ourselves back again. We are a developing country, so the anchor of the budget should be towards development expenditure overall, and maybe even minimizing some of the OPEX. That I think for a country like ours is usually seen as quite big in my layperson's perspective. SMEs, of course, this is a topic that I spoke to my guest yesterday quite passionately about, right? Because 41% of our GDP is actually derived from SME activities, micro businesses or self-entrepreneurship, actual SMEs themselves functioning as businesses, factories, and so on, right? So the emphasis on SMEs is usually there, but unfortunately, I think in terms of implementation, even not considering the whole COVID situation, Prof, and also Yeen, that sometimes, there's still that gap, that we need to fill up, Budget 2021 started to bring much hope to SMEs and also e-commerce startups, the emphasis there. And we know that in Malaysia, SMEs play a crucial role, like I was saying. Some of the sectors also greatly affected by COVID. Tourism, retail, other medium-sized enterprises. So what are the overall expectations towards this particular group? I mean, there is the context of the 3R, right? The rebuilding, recovery, and also the important reform part of these badly affected tourism and other SME-related sectors. What are your thoughts? Prof, let's start with you.
This is a very difficult question. Basically, for example, tourism, right? It's really being affected badly, during the COVID-19. Hotels, we call it logistic, tourism companies, and even people want to perform the Hajj and Umrah also cannot actually do or perform the Hajj and Umrah. So basically, this is a very big problem, but in terms of the recovery plan for this industry, for example, there might be some initiative from the government to assist them, by having them ability to increase productivity and also to ensure that their working capital requirement and also the ability to survive, because when you want to survive, you must actually be able to cover your fixed costs. So during the 18 months or almost 2 years, so they have difficulties on covering fixed costs. Fixed costs can be from rental of the buildings and also for your labor. So for hotels to ensure that they can pay their workers is actually a very difficult thing to do,
right?
Because they don't operate. They can't operate like a full capacity, but they still have to pay their employees. But last year they have this, what I call it, the wages subsidy, or a wages subsidy, which is actually helping these companies. But still, the tourism industry needs something that might be giving them a booster, a kickstart for them to go back, because I believe that many, for example, small hotels budgets, they have been sold, because they can't operate, and then even the small operators of homestays, they also have difficulties for 2 years, all right. Now, if the hotels or the what call it, the tourism industry is actually playing a part when they know that when the economy is booming and they save sufficient enough to face the pandemic, then it's okay. But the time period of this COVID-19 is quite long, right? It is more than 1 year. Right, so it's very difficult for one business,
that's right,
one small business, to sustain one whole year or more than one whole year without any income.
That's the thing. I mean, it's always going to be, I think, for this particular case as well. You talk about tourism, right? It's going to be a mixture of both. You're going to have the actual recovery age, shall we say. But within the context of what I think recently Yeen also mentioned in a discussion that we had, isn't it? Sometimes it's time for consolidation. Maybe some things just don't work. So the pandemic has really pushed that. Like if a business isn't able to sustain from a cash flow basis, right, up to 2 years, 1+ years, let's say, and something is probably not quite running that efficiently with the business to begin with. But similarly with the tourism sector, isn't it? So I think there's also that opportunity to also realign and make those reforms, which is one of the R's or the 3 R's, isn't it?
Yep.
That's why we need to try to see how we can actually put that focus there, that is not just about giving a lifeline, but it's actually about completely transforming and reforming the sector and the products as well, right, Yeen?
Yes, correct. I mean, businesses who have been affected will hate us for saying this or even think about it, but a strategic thing to do would be exactly what you have just said. If you shouldn't be there, then don't be there, because there's just so much that the government can bail out. So I think when the resources are limited, the approach has to be very targeted. The beneficiaries have to be very targeted, and they need to be the one that have a promising future, because we cannot be just giving crumbs to everybody, because if you give crumbs to everybody go hungry. So we may need to decide who gets what based on potential, based on track record, or I don't know. The government will need to have that consideration.
Right.
What kind of factors will then determine who gets what.
Talking about which, right? This is a good point as well. So this is. I'm not an expert in this field, so maybe with the two of you could share with us what types of incentives or assistance you're talking about that could do that, which is to ensure that businesses can stay resilient in facing whatever crisis that we've had to face, but also enabling post-pandemic innovations. What type of incentive proper? Any examples can share with us?
I think perhaps some merger can be encouraged, because just very simple economics. I sell nasi lemak at the roadside. You sell curry puff at the roadside. He sells fried banana. But we have three different stalls selling one product, similar product, targeting the same market, but we have 3 sets of operating costs. So if 3 of us can merge and make one stall slightly bigger, we pick who has the best stall, best location, consolidate our resources, one stall, 3 co-owners selling 3 products, and we share. Maybe that's the right thing to do.
That's right.
Than to take up 3 stall space and have 3 kitchen, 3 workers, and all that. So to bring down the cost of doing business, sometimes it's also about working with others, building alliance. Maybe that could be something very simplistic. Of course, it's a very simplistic example, but that's one of the way that can be done. And how can we be more efficient?
Right.
We can also sell online, right? So going online is one way. Merging, and by the way, and I do expect a lot of M&A happening next year as well. Even beyond the SME, SMI, but also at the public, the public listed company space.
Right.
Those who have been public, who have gone public, because they just cannot survive.
Yeah, interesting thoughts, sir. So we'll see that trend is proven as it unfolds, right? Prof, any ideas? What sort of ways, methods, types of even assistance that the government could churn out, right, in terms of doing exactly this.
I'm going back to the economic fundamental. Okay, economic fundamental, if you look at the economic growth, so you look at the equation, the equation. So basically, we have this capital. Okay, we have labor, and also we have another function which is the technology. Technology. So capital we can get from whether it's actually from local or also foreign. So we are talking about FDI. So we want this capital to be coming in. We want also the local capital also to be pouring into the economy. And then labor forces, right? So we need to have these labor forces, and we need to reduce the unemployment rate. And the third one would be the technology. So basically, if you talk of this, why we need the technology factor here is that because it will improve the economy, productivity. Right, so economy technology comes from digitalization, IR 4.0, and so on. So talking about the fundamental of this, so probably most of the incentive might be almost the same as the previous years. Transformation of our economy. So it will be more or less we'll be trying to transforming the business to become a digital or e-commerce, and also trying to prepare themselves for the gig economy. So and when we talk about trying to be efficient, right? So when you include technology in your company, basically it will increase the productivity level of the employees of the company itself, right? So it will reduce the costs, so such as Yeen just mentioned just now. So basically you have three small businesses, but these three small businesses can actually have one platform.
That's right.
That actually selling the
That's right. Because you'll be saving on the rental, you'll be merging your manpower together.
Yes. So that can be done easily with the application of technology.
So tech will be a uniting factor in this case. I also feel that this is where I think it will actually be maybe a game changer in terms of the relevant the connections and the communication between the business itself and also to the relevant agent or agency that's in charge overall in providing assistance, or maybe to have whatever teachings or transfer technology and all that.
But there will be challenges for the two major challenges for the government. For the first one is to reduce the digital gap between the rural and also the urban areas.
Exactly.
So we have a very large digital gap, for students in Sabah or Sarawak. Having to climb the trees just to get
correct,
which is not acceptable, right?
Yes. Recently also, we also featured right on the show a lady who is very passionate about teaching, and she has to be the what do you call it, the medium point between actually getting online and then getting the information back to her students in the area that's more rural that she's from. So you're right, absolutely, that big gap that has to be really addressed.
And then the second one is actually the gap, the digital gap between the the age factor. The younger generation compared to the older generation, or experienced generation. So there's a gap there, between these two generations. So the younger generation, they don't have any problem with digitalized or e-commerce or whatever, right? But the older generation, so there will be a gap. So how do actually the transfer of knowledge of how to actually using it, to apply to use the technology application can be teach, or train to the older generation. So that's one thing.
That's the thing. I think in that case, a lot of it has to just be it's a change of mindset and attitude, that we do need to get everybody on board and to have the mindset that no one should be left out.
Yep.
Anecdotally, I can think about a few people in my life, even maybe one or two that's in the station that used to have this mentality that, I'm not a tech person, so I don't need to be on Facebook and all that. But even that has to change. You have to be, no matter what your age is and no matter what segment of society that you're from, right?
Yeah.
So it's a mindset, more of maybe that's what the key lies. It's not so much of a budget factor, but perhaps more like there should be a campaign targeting that we should all be tech savvy regardless of what age group that we're at. Yeah. But here's the thing, there's so many components, and even our Prime Minister himself has said that Budget 2022 is from the people, by the people, for the people, and also high impact, taking into account the whole concept of Keluarga Malaysia, and with that wow factor. So should we be expecting all of these, and how would that even, in the context of our discussion so far, there's so many aspects that we need to give emphasis on. So now then there's this whole idea of aid for the B40, M40 groups. And then also the PM also said that Budget 2022 will be also disabled friendly, which is a much welcome thing. But how can we actually, make sure that this works or can work?
Well, firstly, what is the wow factor lah? Okay.
Like, wow, the budget is so big.
Wow. Well,
I mean, yeah, you would think that it would be that, right?
Okay. So probably it's going to be big, right? Probably going to be big. Wow. Right.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, okay, this is actually like, because it's... You mentioned just now that the budget will be taking care of the B40s, right, and the family, right? So which is the new things here right now. But I was actually been talking about family, for example, in terms of financial planning or whatever. So basically, this is the thing that we need to popularize, okay, right now, because. For example, if we talk about financial planning, okay, the leader or the husband only be talking about the budget for the family, okay, but we need to actually include, right, the wife, okay, the children, okay, in the budget. So the leader must be transparent. Okay, what is your budget? Okay, for this year, what you will be spending? Okay, are you spending on the men? What are you spending more on golf or what? So you need to present your family budget every year to your wife and children so that they can understand. Right. So if the what you call it, the national budget is also looking at that perspective. So basically, we need to have that to be transparent. Everything must be transparent. It's just like that, transparent, and everybody must know. Okay, what are you spending? Okay, how much you are getting? Okay, do you spend it rightly? Right. So this is very important. Okay, so it must be transparent also to the family level. Okay, the family level, which is we. Which means
you mean more details to be spelled out within the budget, or maybe some of the addendums to it. I'm not quite sure what they're officially called, but that's how I would put it. And also, I think a large part of it is the implementation that's important, right? So sometimes I think we as people were not first hand into how the budget is distributed per se once 2022 comes around. So it is really that implementation that's important, But in terms of encompassing aid for so many different diverse groups, Yeen, what are your thoughts?
Well, then I would say it's politically friendly. But of course, that's the right thing to do. Whether it's disabled friendly, young people friendly, old people friendly. It's just about sharing the pie. But what I am more interested in is where will be the revenue coming from? The percentage of expenditure budget, the ratio for expenditure budget, development budget, emoluments. Okay, those are the key things that we need to look at. But I think from the rakyat perspective, what we are feeling right now is inflation is actually quite high. We actually feel it on the in our day-to-day daily life. What we
but from the data, inflation is quite low at the moment. The data is quite low. Inflation during COVID.
Data is what I don't know who collects the data, where the data comes from. But what I'm saying is that as
Dali,
for example,
we go to the market.
You go to the market, you buy your chicken. How much per kilo? You buy your kangkong, how much per kilo?
But when we talk about the income, income of the nation. So basically, we have from direct income, and also we have also from the indirect income. So the majority of the income is from the taxes. Okay, so if you want to increase tax, that will be actually not popular.
I don't think the government is looking at increasing or introducing any taxes. I think the Minister of Finance have already made that very clear.
But that is our income.
Yeah, but that's
our income. Yeah, our income is from taxes, from indirect and also investment, and also the petroleum.
That's right.
I call it revenue.
But that's the thing. Let's talk about that because it's interesting. Because in my question guide here, the question here is actually, will this wow factor, since we're talking about it, include tax incentives?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that, right? That's the interesting point that we're at.
Incentive at a corporate level or personal level?
Well, that's the thing.
They're two right.
Because as a matter of fact, the Malaysian corporate tax is high.
Yeah.
And we are even higher than Singapore. That makes business less friendly than Singapore. I don't have to compare with other countries. I just look at Singapore because they are our direct neighbor, right? And personal income tax is quite high as well. We don't have lots of deductions, the allowable deductions. So as an individual, I would like to see more of that. But you see, like profs have said, the direct revenue is from taxes.
Yes.
If companies are not making that much, how to pay the tax? Where would the taxes be coming from?
There is actually an economic theory. So there is, like we call it, the impact of taxes towards the economy. Okay, there is one we call it. If you refer to if the modern economic theory is level curve. Okay, level curve. But there is also a theory from the Ibn Khaldun, if you want to check. So basically, it's saying that the lower the tax, the better the economy. Okay, the lower the tax, the better the economy. That is actually from the theory. But there is actually like what I call it, a debate. Okay, between pro and cons. Whether you want to have whether you want to try experiment. Okay, low taxes, and then what will happen to our economy, or you want to have high tax. Okay, and then we have sufficient money to spend for the development expenditure.
Yes. Do we have a precedence for that? Do we have an example, or did Malaysia ever go through a period of time that we were low in taxes in general, Prof?
No.
I wasn't born.
I don't believe so. So it's interesting to see whether that would actually be something that can work, if that theory can hold water as well. So a lot has to do with where we are at the moment as well. I mean, how have we done in 2021?
Well, maybe what Prof was saying, let me backtrack a little, is that if government charges less tax percentage, people have more disposable income.
For sure.
Therefore, there are more money rolling in the market. I mean that's layman term. Yes. That's how we say it from an economic point of view. But I also feel that any government should not interfere too much with business. I think that I believe that a freer market economy is very important. I mean, I'm not a very strong advocate for complete free economy, free market economy, because I don't think that's possible, or I mean, not so possible in reality. But I think that there should be less intervention in business by the government. I feel that. I feel that the business people know exactly what to do. You really don't need to put up too much of restrictions, policies to either dampen your growth or push you to grow, because businesses are supposed to be organic. Successful entrepreneurs who make lots of money, they know exactly what to do. They know how to run their corporations. So when government have less interest in running businesses, then it is also time for the business community to thrive on their own.
Right. And to be at their best.
To be at their best. Because then they don't have to worry. Like, we just give you an example. It's just from my observation. I feel that the Malaysian GLC have got too much interest in too many things. The GLCs. And that may not be the best thing for private businesses. That's just my observation.
Interesting thoughts. And perhaps maybe where we can, in fact, balance things up in terms of taxation is to have more personal tax incentives, right? More tax deductions, like you were saying, right? And maybe not tinker so much with corporate taxes at the moment.
I don't think we can have higher corporate tax because otherwise people will leave the country. Only the half past, I wouldn't use the word 6:30, but really just whoever who can do the smaller scale will stay, but the mega scale will find ways to leave the country, or they will move their wealth away from the country because they've been taxed so much. Yeah. Then it becomes less efficient.
Good point, yeah. And here's the thing, I mean, that's this part of my question guideline here as well, right? It's something. Okay, I'm going to check with the two of you. I mean, how would you feel that our country has fared so far? Right now that we are approaching the endemic phase, and what are your thoughts on this? So this is like a center consolidation of our discussion today at the moment, and we'll see what happens and when Tengku Zafrul will be making his appearance.
Okay, I think from the historical part, okay, the economy has ups and downs. Okay. Ups and downs. We have we'll call it the economy problem in 1970s, 74. We have another economic problem in 1984, and then 1998.
That's right.
Okay, then 2001 and 2008, and also 2021. Okay, or 2020 and 2021. So, which is we can say some economists say that it's the reset. Okay, the reset button. Okay, the economy goes up and then it goes down. So basically, if we have already gone through the COVID-19 pandemic and then it goes to endemic, right? So if we can actually manage that, okay, the issue of COVID, okay, our economy will be going, will be increasing for the next maybe 8 to 9 years. So it will be positively increasing. So, and then we have another reset. Okay, we have another reset. So, any businesses or any, individual in Malaysia, if they understand that this cycle, okay, they will actually be prepared. Okay, be prepared for any possible, reset, economic reset, such as COVID-19. Okay, so for example, if they know this, okay, so small businesses, so they will start whenever the economy is good. They will have like saving, okay, for the rainy days, which is during the economic, which is not good.
Right. Similarly, and you can also take that to be striking while things are down, right? Which was pretty much this year, especially last year, isn't it? Right. So if you're not started already, this is a little bit on the side note. You might be a little bit late to the game.
You see, what Professor have said is correct. Economic cycles go up and down. Everything that's come down will go up. That's theory, right? But when you are in the business, when you are thriving, you wouldn't think that you are at your peak. You wouldn't think of saving. You would think about more development, growing the business, right?
Right, diversification, expansion.
Yeah, and then you may be gearing a lot more because you think that you of course everybody would think that their business will do better next year, and the next is going to be better.
Yeah.
Then suddenly there is a dip.
Yeah, but that's just greed, though.
It's not exactly greed. It's just business strategies as well.
Yeah,
because when you are riding high, you want to do more. You want to develop. So when you want to develop, you need to spend to develop. You need to make investments. So money goes out. Then suddenly there's a dip, then you fall. So when you're in business during this pandemic, most people will not look at this as an economy reset or a business cycle or economic cycle. All they are concerning is, am I going to climb up? Am I going to survive? Am I going to get out of it? Right? So I think, yes, what Professor says is correct. But it's really theoretical. But for businesses on the ground, when you are in the position of business, you don't think like that.
Yeah,
no cycle.
Yeah. But basically, if you look at how the Warren Buffett are thinking, right? So they are also doing business, right? So they are waiting for the time for the economic reset for them to invest more.
Yeah, but that's a mega scale. Let's talk about the warung outside.
Yeah, that's right. Let's
talk about the retail store in KLCC.
We need more people to be, to understand about the economy, about the ups and downs. So whether you have to actually save, you have to save for your rainy days.
You have to make provisions all the time, right?
Interesting thoughts here. Right? Just putting a full stop to that. And then moving on to the next part of the discussion as we are waiting for the official start in Parliament. Performance-wise, any thoughts on this? I mean, we've heard opinions, that you look at overall growth will be a few percent, like 3% maybe overall across 2021. The pessimistic side even has pegged it to 0% growth overall for Malaysia across the entire 2021. Any thoughts on how we would be faring?
Okay, basically, if you look at our performance, we are doing okay before the pandemic. So we are doing about 4 to 5% on average. Until the year 2020, we plunged down.
That's right.
So we have negative 5.7, and then our average turns out to be 2.7, if I'm not mistaken. But before that, it was always 4 to 5%. Okay, it was always to 4 to 5% every year consistently. Okay, and some certain time we have also achieved 8%, right? 8%. But this is the thing, okay? When we have this economic reset, we will have like a slowdown in the market. So basically, the economy is actually trying to adjust again, because you already moved so high, okay? You are climbing so high, and then there is must be to slow you down. Okay, to slow you down so that you can actually have a fresh start. Okay, you have a fresh start before so in looking forward, I believe that our economy will be growing at 4 to 5% per annum.
Right? For 2022.
For 2022 onwards, so it will be around that. Okay, so about 4 to 5% per annum. But for 2022, we will see. Okay, we will see for the how we actually manage to maneuver. Okay, all the issues or problems of businesses, unemployment, and so on. So if we can do that, it probably will be 4 to 0.5% as previously. Because in 1998, we plunged more, bigger than in 2022.
The COVID effects, right?
It's bigger.
Yeah,
it's about 9.7%, if not mistaken.
Okay,
the contraction.
Right.
But we managed to get it to 4 to 5% afterwards. Right?
First, it's a matter of how long that would take.
Yeah.
Any thoughts in terms of performance for the rest of 2021? Projections for 2022, Yeen?
I would be harder on ourselves. I would say that, assuming that prior to year 2020, before 2020, if we were growing at, let's say, 4 to 5%, and then we plunged so badly because of the pandemic to 0, let's say just 0, then when we recover, I wouldn't call a 0 to 4 a growth. I would say going back to pre-pandemic, but I would personally look at what is beyond to, let's say, the 4.5%. Then I call it a growth, because that is like from 4.5, I dropped to 0 because of pandemic. That's not normal. But I would expect the economy to go back to 4.0 and then look at the beyond. But then my own observation, or something that I haven't got an answer. I haven't quantified is what's going to be our growth factor. What do you think? What's going to
the growth factor that would be the technology factor. So it might be having a booster there. Okay, you might be having a booster. For example, previously we have about 4 to 5%. Now, after we have already digitalized, we have, for example, your company, right? You have digital. You don't have to go, which means that you are making more money.
On the practical scale, though, we're talking about 2022, so we still have to put that into perspective, right? Okay. So I on some things, as long as internet connectivity is there, we can safely say for urban centers in Malaysia, some of the semi-urban areas, unfortunately not yet those really out of reach rural areas, right? So internet connectivity is something that we can rely on. Technology is fast. There are apps created every single day by so many different people for so many different purposes. But then, of course, practically speaking, there's that skill, right? The skill gap amongst people who know how to really maneuver through cyberspace or be able to be the best entrepreneurs that they can be, right? So that will take some time and training.
Yeah, probably.
It's also initiative. It's also how prepared the person is, how much initiative they take towards upskilling from that particular endeavor, isn't it? So it's not really Like you can just switch that on button and say like everybody's now going to be online and thriving online successfully, businesses included.
But I'm doing a survey for a KPK. So I'm looking at the the spending behavior, okay, of Malaysian people and also financial vulnerability.
We are shopping queen online, right? We are the shopping king and queens online.
Yeah.
Malaysia.
So
What
for Southeast Asia, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The data is that showing that during before and also during pandemic, so we have actually a significant increase for online shopping. For shopping online, so that is from data. So normally I always say when I look at the data and the data is statistically significant, right?
However, Prof. However, after the MC, okay, so I know of a few businesses who mushroom during the MCO period. They make up to like a couple of 100,000 in sales per month during the first month of the starting of them in operation. But now that the market have reopened, they saw a 90-degree dip in their business, and suddenly they become not relevant anymore.
Yeah,
That's what I saw.
I know. Yeah, we have to be able to separate between what is an attempt and what is a
sustainable success.
Exactly. And the other thought that we talk about shopping as well is that, now we also need to focus, if we can, individually, how to keep our shopping to the vendors and so on, which are Malaysian, right, or Malaysian registered. How to keep
That's
money.
something very difficult.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. That will be really tough. Okay, so now the time is here. We're going to cross over to Parliament, of course, where our finance minister is currently starting his budget 2022 tabling. Right. So stay tuned right here on TRAXXfm, as well as across the board on our Facebook page, TRAXXfm official as well.
Experience the excitement right here on TRAXXfm.